Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Priyom Sarkar, founder and CEO of Asanify, a gamified HR and payroll platform for small businesses and small business owners with automated statutory compliances. Priyom, thank you so much for joining the show. I'm really excited to chat with you about your background, your experience, not only what you're working on, but what you previously worked on, because I think there's a lot of insights that I'm selfishly excited to learn from, but I think our audience can really have a lot of amazing takeaways. So again, thank you much for joining the show. But before we get into all of that, what were you doing before you started Asanify?
It's been a pleasure. So before Asanify, last week I was heading international ad sales for Viacom. It's
Yeah,
about 150 million when I had left. And a little bit after that also, I was also heading subscription business for a large player, the largest video streaming platforms in Asia, which also had about 300 million monthly users. Before
yeah.
that, I also helped launch the 4G internet ecosystem for India's largest private telco firm, Reliance. And as such, before that, I'm a software engineer by training, and I've also done my MBA in about 2010.
Amazing, amazing. What got you to you worked on such products that really had a broad outreach for people who needed either access or information kind of easily given to them, whether it was the 4G, service, or it was OTT platforms, which is, I can't remember the acronym, but it's on the
Over the top.
uh, over the
Over
top.
the top.
Thank you.
As
Over the
opposed
top media.
to the wire, which is television, standard televisions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what keyed your interest into services like those that were very broad reaching? You weren't really selling, I'm sure there was a lot of B2B components to it, but it really does affect your consumer and your user base a lot. What got you excited about those opportunities at the time?
Right. So, of course, for India, which has about 1.3 billion people with general telco reach of about 800, 900 million people. So, the whole aspect of that huge scale and connecting all of India at that scale was an amazing experience with 4G, because, of course, 2G, 3G, and then 4G. And India is a very unique economy in that we did not have the PC revolution and directly went to mobile, right? From, television to straight to mobile. So very
Yeah.
rarely will you have seen in most people, houses having PC. We just straight away went to mobile phone, and then within, a few years directly jumped into 4G, and now almost like we are one of the biggest, data guzzlers in the world. And as such, it was a very, very seamless journey for me, because from, core telco and infrastructure, and I was very, planning for the entire launch for about 2, 3 years. We planned for the investment of about, I think it's probably about $20 billion of investment in the infrastructure for the
Yeah.
telco company that I was part of. And post that, one of the biggest beneficiaries, of course, is video streaming platform, because video demands possibly the most bandwidth across all other use cases of OT network. And suddenly from, people who were paying very low for ad supported televisions in a standard, we had about 700, 800 million people who were on television, television sets, transporting them, from traditional forms to a video streaming platform and doing it in a very engaging and very, very seamless way. That was an amazing journey. And of course, I
Yeah.
think that 4G revolution really helped and laid the groundwork for the next level of ecosystem development. And thus, and in India last 5, 6 years, suddenly there has been this 2, 3 major transformation. One, there was a major tax revolution in India, wherein the entire indirect taxation went away from individual state-wise to a country-wise tax. It's called GST. And
Yeah.
from GST, what happened was everyone was supposed to do accounting online. That was the, major strike one for, the overall tech and fintech revolution in India. That followed by, 4G launch, which forced people to just be online for,
Yeah.
doing everything. And then obviously came COVID, which forced me to do HR online, which is, one of the reasons that we started with Asanify, because there was just no other way to not manage people but online. And that
Yeah.
really helped in a very, very strong way. And that was possible. The strike three was growth of the entire HR tech and fintech market around people management, all over the world. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many follow-up questions for that experience. One of them is how was being that you've worked in both, US markets and Indian markets, where do you think the benefit of going directly to mobile was for technology or for maybe direct to consumer technology or advertising? I can see that there's
Mhm.
probably so many layers to having not go through the web, which kind of has a filtration system that either uses algorithms to cater certain information, or how Google uses SEO to have, spiders that attract certain pieces of information to you. What are the advantages that you've seen, and maybe disadvantages as well, of going directly to mobile?
Right. So India is a very unique market in that some of the things that people from US or UK and maybe most of the European markets will take for granted is, say, a space in your mobile. Like almost every mobile phone user, especially iPhone user, will have at least 64 GB, if not 128 GB, and so on. But in India, it's mainly Android market, which was the main phone market. And not only for example, Android has about 9,600 specs in India across the different phones. YouTube itself supports about 3,000 types of specs. So YouTube itself, being a gold product, does not support all of them. So the difficulty is in making apps that, work across these different, kinds of makes. That's number one. The bigger problem is, as I said, most of the small smartphones or very low spec smartphones sell for about, $50 or so. And as such, what happens is the main compromise people used to do, especially early, is in the space. And that space limitation resulted in extremely high churn for almost all the apps. So for, when we launched our video streaming product, one of the biggest challenges was because people used to run out of space, they used to delete the old apps and install a new app. So we had to overcome that challenge, which is unforeseen across the world, because in most places, people will not typically, let go of an app, just because they need one more app.
Yeah.
So what we did was we launched something now, which is pretty commonplace, a Google technology product called Progressive Web App. We, as part of Viacom India's, which is, you might have heard of Paramount Plus and other video streaming products that Viacom has in US, MTV and all these big brands that are there. So for India, we had the similar launch called Voot. The brand name was Voot. So we were the world's first video progressive web app. And as such, we won for media the biggest ever, international award is called International Broadcasting Invention. It's held in Amsterdam. So we won the best invention of the year awards in the world of media all over the world. For that is, even YouTube had not done a video PWA before Wood launched.
Yeah.
So with that, what happened was PWA specifically, of course, you might be aware, but for those who are so that we are on the same page, what happens is you can store a small copy of the system or bookmark on your, on your page on your mobile phone. And it almost, acts exactly like an app, just that it is not going to store so much data. You can bookmark it, you can cache it. The speed goes up and people won't have to, let go of that. So instantly our usage went up 70-80%. Retention was, up by 150%. And, the adoption really improved for a market like India. So it's always, obviously we have to listen to the customers and have our ears very close. And, it's copy pasting a formula that has worked in another country never works. That's what I really about this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. You explained the founder journey that is very, very common is, if you try to solve a specific problem from the inside out, you're not going to necessarily have a lot of positive results, whether it's adaptation of your product, or if it's like the usefulness, you'll have a lot of churn. But when you listen to your customers and really see what their needs are and work around the technology, either to find creative solutions or to find ways that are innovative, and connect the problem to the solution, then becomes, a really, adoptable and exciting product. And you can see a lot of success from that. Moving into, Asanify and what you're working on now, and maybe even just previously in your experiences, where do you get the insight to go after, and I don't know if it's whether emerging markets or, technology that is, for all intents and purposes, is disruptive or innovative? You said that, before the way the tax system was, it wasn't kind of a universal tax, a system that made everybody do their accounting online, and businesses included, I'm sure. How do you kind of have the foresight to see what's out in the market? What's the need? Where do you look towards, or what is your experience on gaining that, kind of, I would say it's a head up or a leg up on the conversation to really understand what people need and how to define technology around serving that need. Where is your thought process? Where do you look towards your information? Where does your experience lead you to go in these directions?
Sure. So, most of my career, I've worked in really large companies. I started my career with, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, one of the largest audit firms in the world.
Yeah.
200,000 people all over the world. And Reliance, which was India's largest private employer, 100,000 people, plus. Viacom also, obviously, globally, it's a huge organization. what happens and then, my own experience was with my own family. My, father runs a small manufacturing unit, 50 odd people. And what happened was for a small payroll tax issue, it took about 2 years of his life to clear that out. And unimaginable distraction if you're running your own business. That you often visit a tax office and clarify with all this type of work. The biggest difference I realized working in a large firm and a small firm is the lack of a support service. Because in a small company, you will not be able to devote enough budget to hire a finance person or an HR person. So founder company or a promoter or a small business owner has to manage everything, all the support services themselves or the team members that there are. So the problem is not just in managing, the problem is in prioritizing what to do, because obviously you're here to build the business to sustain and even in some cases to justify your existence. Unless you are product market fit, unless you achieve product market fit, you won't know, whether you are going to survive or not. And there, if there's so much distraction, then, you are not in a position to be able to justify your existence. That's when I felt there has to be something simpler, easier. That's when we came up with the whole idea of Asanify. Asan, the word actually in Hindi or the Indian languages means easy. So the idea is simplify and make it easy for people to focus on, founders to focus on building their business. Specifically, we want to tackle two aspects to this, that every single business needs to hire employees and pay them. Of course, obviously no employee will work, for free forever at least. So if you have to hire such people and pay them, the process is so difficult in almost all countries of the world that there's so many laws, etc. to take care of. So you just wanted to build a system where with one click, everything can get done. And, right from the time you hire to the time someone gets the money. And with clear India, Albert Einstein said that tax is the most difficult thing in the world. And that holds true for almost all countries. So knowing, clear and transparent system, just so that the business owners can focus on building their own business. That was, a key motivation for this much. And eventually we realized we were not just solving the problem of, paying people, but the problem started even before that. For a small brand, and I was part of some big brands, Firebomb, those are like extremely, top, very, very attractive employer brands. But for a small company to build an employer brand is also very, very difficult. So how do you differentiate yourself? So having say, for example, having a nice careers page. So software also helps, people do that. Ability to have your own personal career page, very, very personalized, completely with your, brand logo and so on. Ability to have a formal offer letter. Many people, many times people do not have time to even even offer letter. So having such, very, very simple, simple things that people take for granted in a larger organization. We wanted to provide that for small organizations that can then, differentiate, attract the best people and engage them by, paying them properly on time and providing other benefits that are, possible in today's world.
Yeah. Was a lot of the information just not shared or available to small businesses? You talk about, I think one thing's important is like contracts. A lot of founders, maybe if they haven't had the experience, or smaller companies didn't have a formal process, there's certain language that you need to have a formal offer. And a lot of things like you mentioned, that will give you people who are seeking out your employment confidence to choose you versus something else that seems a little bit more safe and structured and maybe reliable. But a lot of that is just with the maturity of what the system looks like. Is it just lack of access to that information? Is it, maybe it's information overload, there's too much out there? And how do you disrupt that? Is it through kind of catering and optimizing and creating an operation around, what it takes to bring on employees, pay them and continue the cycle?
Right. So I think the biggest thing is fear. Fear is being wrong, right? So, I mean, one of the common refrains we hear is people are afraid, is this the right salary structure? Is this a compliant salary structure? Because everyone dreads that one letter from the income tax department asking them to show up and, justify why they did or did not pay, the employees the right pay. And, labor laws are, difficult in all, possible countries. And in many cases, that information may be there somewhere, but it is not very easily accessible. So having a very, very transparent system, which, Julian, you pointed out correctly, that having a transparent system, having everyone able to access not just information, but also experts. So we also have expert panels, and we also have a concierge service that, can help people, structure the salaries in the way which is compliant per state, because India, like in most big countries in US, etc., the laws vary by state. So it's a very complicated system, and there's no one rule fits all, as far as salaries and pay structure is concerned. And also,
Yeah.
it's not just the calculations and the compliance, but also the filing and the, the keeping track of all the changes, because it's not static. All the regulation keep changing almost every day. So someone
Yeah.
has to dedicatedly think about this. And a startup founder has enough, problems in their head in any way, not to, keep in touch with all the regulatory changes that happen across states, across, labor division. So it's just too much distraction to take care of a business, especially when you're starting out. So that's what we wanted to focus on and help them build a better business, provide an empowered employee base, which reinforces the ability to survive and thrive in today's economy.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I'm super curious about when working in a service and with the technology that, has to
Mhm.
maintain kind of level of service to cater to their audience, but also technology and build it to be, something that is useful and also continues to add features is how do you define or kind of check in with the business on when to invest in technology and engineering and focusing on
Mhm.
that versus which I'm sure you have the issue of investing in service, with whether it's customer service, onboarding, client success, things along that nature. How do you counterbalance or how do you manage the seesaw of,
Mhm.
investing in technology versus service and also maybe, compliance officers that make sure that you're up to date in regulations. How do you balance out and when and choose when to focus on which aspect of your business?
Right. I mean, one of the biggest, possibly the biggest challenge from the technology standpoint of a startup is not what features to build, but what not to build, because there's like so much to do, right? The prioritization is one of the biggest challenges, right? So we've always struggled and, thought deeply about that. So, and of course, it has to be balanced with the need for speed, because unless you build things fast, it's always very difficult. So our challenge has always been to listen to customers we have always, wanted to do that very, very diligently, that what our customers want and what our ideal customers want, because there's always a challenge,
Mhm.
especially when you're starting out. The initial people you get may not be your ideal customers. So eventually, whatever is your ideal customer, not everything people
Yeah.
say, for example, if you only have free customers, not everyone would eventually pay. So one of the key decisions we made is to charge from day one. So we had revenue from the very first customer we service. We did not want to have a long free, model and then charge, because for us, because we were a small team and we bootstrapped for a while, we survived on angel money for a while. We wanted to just make sure we are serving the right set of customers and
Mhm.
developing things that matter to our larger set as we grow. The other point that you brought up was very, very interesting, no doubt, about service versus the products, and making it self-serve obviously is our big challenge, and we want to, in for HR and for people, and I'm sure for many, almost all the software, onboarding is the biggest challenge, and we have tried to optimize it from day one. One of the key things for real is, because for us, most people's data exists in Excel sheets or manually. The onboarding becomes a big challenge, and some of our competitors are taking about 2-3 months to onboard. Sometimes, years pass for a
Yeah.
full-fledged, large company implementation of a software. So what we wanted to do is we challenged ourselves to do it in a day, and we invested in a lot of integrations. We tried to fight Excel and tried to change people's behavior. We realized changing behavior, especially when it's a new software, is very difficult. So we then built an Excel Plus approach. The UI and everything we made similar to Excel, so people will be very easy. You can easily cut, copy, paste your data from Excel and manage it very easily. So it seemed familiar to them. And secondly, we realized that unless we provide a service aspect, even then, even if a customer wants to do it, because our customer is, say, a founder who is extremely busy with many things. So sometimes he may not have the ability to do it. So in many cases, we provide free, concierge services and free onboarding service, because we realize unless we can onboard immediately and in a fast way, one of the biggest determinants is onboarding actually to our long-term survival. We have studied
Yeah.
now data for the last 2-3 years, that unless onboarding was done fast and in a very meaningful way, and unless the customer sees value early, the longevity of the customer really, wanes away. And I learned by trial and I learned by failure. Because initially we said that unless we will charge for the onboarding service, this is an extra service. But we realized some of those customers did not see the value because they could not do
Yeah.
it somehow. And
Yeah.
then we thought that unless the product is developed enough to meet the requirements, let us provide services so that then the product catches up. And the other benefit of providing a lot of service in the early stages is we learn. We are, in many cases, we are operating as a pseudo HR for some of the small
Yeah.
companies. Now,
Yeah.
when we are in literally their shoes, or not literally, figuratively their shoes, we realize that, you are, what are the key challenges they face. As a result, our software becomes better and we are able to, make nuances and the features that much more attuned to the needs of these customers.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant on how you created kind of an experience that was something very similar to a lot of what these companies were using, but with, I think the new capabilities and keeping
Right.
track of information, but also using that.
Keep in sync with the mental model. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just want to highlight the mental model we wanted to align
yeah.
and then build on top of that. Please go.
Yes. No, that's exactly true. And I think that's
Right.
the best part of what a founder can do with something that is disruptive, kind of, it's a red ocean territory, but it's blue ocean in terms of the solutions you were offering. Um, Tell me a little bit more about the traction. So you've been working on Asanify, you were bootstrapped for a little bit, but now you've seen a lot of growth, a lot of success. You've added different layers to your service. Not only does it, work on HR compliance and hiring people, but also getting through the whole process, even with adding, it sounds like a job section so that you can really drive this top of funnel approach with your clients and be integrated in this whole process. How many customers do you have right now? What are you excited about in terms of the quarter to quarter growth? Tell me a little bit about your traction there.
Sure. So very interesting thing about payroll system specifically is the fact that it's very difficult to build trust when you are one startup and then going and taking care of the money that people are supposed to pay. So, and the other problem of not just payroll, but any enterprise system is the completeness, because typically any, business software needs a lot of features. It's not like a simple consumer app that has just does one thing well. So unlike the traditional, knowledge or thought in the, in the market across startups that we have to move fast and so-called break things, we
Yeah.
really wanted to build the core product first, fast, but in a very, very secure and safe way, because it was money and we have, done a lot of banking
Yeah.
integrations. So we wanted to make sure everything goes fine. So for the first couple of years, we just, built it in a way that people can trust, and, then we wanted to scale. So that scaling has come now. So for the first couple of years, we had about 100 odd customers. Now, about in the last year, we have scaled about 10x, and every month we see about 15 to 20% growth. That's where we are going. By the end of the year, we should be reaching $500,000 to $0.75 million in ARR. So that's where we are going.
Amazing. Yeah. Congrats on all the success. And you mentioned a couple of challenges that you faced early on. And as a company who's working with other companies and managing money and assets, things like that. But I'm curious on a grander scale, what are some of the biggest risks that Asanify faces today?
So I classify risks in maybe 4 dimensions: regulatory, economic, sociological, and technological. So from a regulatory standpoint for us, it's actually a boon if regulation becomes more complex, because then you'll need a system to manage these things. However, of course, we need to, the risk for us is we have to really keep track of all the changes. That's number one. The other thing is, say, GDPR and other such privacy laws. That makes maybe for a startup managing and, being compliant with all the privacy laws extremely costly in many cases because of all the audit and other requirements. So that's one big risk. From a economic standpoint, of course, every company needs to pay their employees. So we don't see that much of a risk in demand, because every company has to have a payroll system. From a sociological standpoint, we see that employees now start demanding not just money, right? Because fintech itself has so much innovation has come. There's easy loans available and so much other things you can do with the money. So our idea is not just to stop. So the risk that we see is people will just, it should become a commodity that I'll just, go to the software just helps me get my money. The question also people can ask is what do I do with the money? Where do I invest? How do I make sure the money is appropriately spent? And people want to know, especially youngsters working in startups, they want to know where to spend the money. So that is something that we want to say, things like early wage access and so on. So those are all the things that we see. From a technology standpoint, of course, people will still get money, but if, say, the Web3 and the blockchain disruption really takes hold, the concept of money itself can change. So from a technology standpoint, how do you pay and what exactly, in what currency do you pay? And whether it's money itself or another form of currency, that virtual currency or otherwise. So those are some of the risks that we foresee, but we are trying our best. In a way, disruption is always good, because then the startup can move fast and achieve success in that field. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thank you for sharing all those. It sounds like you kind of have a lot of things on your plate to consider when building software like yours and a company like yours. But if everything goes well, and you mentioned some, some kind of future milestones that you want to achieve with these companies, but if everything goes well, what's the long-term vision for Asanify?
So our long-term vision is to become like an everything store for work, which means for employers and founders, everything that they need to manage the people, not just in terms of hiring and, paying them, but say benefits and perks and so on. Even in most companies, payroll takes about 50% or more of the entire cost, or at least it's 80-90%. So even providing working capital loans on, backed by payroll and so on. So anything and everything that they need to manage people and overall work. So that's from an admin and from a employer standpoint. From the employee standpoint, as I mentioned, that people need not just money. So payroll is not the end product. We started with payroll. We felt that once you get the money in the bank, how do you spend the money? That is something that we want to explore in the long run. And for the employee, we want to provide not just money coming into your bank, but where do you spend, like setting, say, recurring ways in which you can pay your rent to your landlord, setting up things like life insurance where you can invest. In many cases, like in India, also tax breaks. Depending on where you spend and invest your money, you can get tax breaks, which also have an implication on payroll. So take care of anything and everything related to the whole flow of money coming from the employer to the employees, and then going beyond that. So for everything related to work and especially people management, hopefully Asanify should be the platform of choice in the long run. That's something that we aspire to build.
Yeah, no, that's incredible and exciting to see that you're kind of looking to be involved in this whole experience of a founder's journey, and really on the side that they shouldn't have to think too much about.
Right.
It's all the things that are necessary and a necessity as they grow and scale. But really, like you mentioned, our big distraction, like your father's experience you mentioned too, really the focal point of what they need to do as founders, which is acquire customers, build great technology, innovate, get customer feedback, and really grow and scale their business through, that focus versus everything on the back end. But selfishly, I always like to ask this questions. I know we're coming close to time, but what books or people influence you the most, either early in your career and midway through, or even now as a seasoned founder?
I am a voracious reader. I do read books quite a lot. Maybe I'll start with people. As I said, my father is an entrepreneur himself, so he has played a big role in not just the insight that I got and eventually launched this, but how he used to manage, things and grew his company on a slightly grander scale. I love reading books, especially, corporate books. One of my all-time heroes is Jack Welch. Welch was ex-CEO of GE, took GE from $20 billion to a $200 billion conglomerate. One of his books was called, I think, Straight from the Gut. I read it I think when I just started working, I had read that book, and I really followed some of his practices of how to, be humble as a leader, how to take care of your people, and how to accept when, you make mistakes. I remember one of his instances was one of his first jobs, he blew up a factory due to some, mismanagement of, technical controls. But he never shied away from accepting the mistakes, so that people knew that everyone can, but you have to learn and, grow from there. The other book I really love is Jim Collins's Good to Great. It, studies, companies which have succeeded in outperforming the markets for about 10, 15 years consistently. And what are some of the core things he's highlighted that, and we've really applied some of those learnings ourselves in our business and so on. Other than that, of course, I love reading Paul Graham's notes on blog, of course, the ex-YC founder, of course, the YC founder, and keep reading all these technological journals, etc. on my spare time.
Yeah. I mean, so many gems that you shared with us, and I'm so excited to share this with my audience. Sure. And so amazing to see where the inception of the idea was, and how you really interpret the needs of, through experience or through, the conversations you have to really create technology that's adaptable and accepted and also innovative. And I think that's something that a lot of founders think that they have a grasp on, but it's awesome to see your experience acting on those things. So last little bit, I always like to ask my founders, where can we find and support your company, your business? Give us your LinkedIns, your Twitters, anything that we can help support and be a part of Asanify and the future mission and goals.
Sure. So our website is asanify.com. It's asanify.com. And of course, on LinkedIn, you'll find us as Asanify, and myself as Priyom.Sarkar. That's my LinkedIn. And on Twitter, the same, Priyom.Sarkar. I would love your support and love to know if we can be of use in any way. And otherwise, just reach me on either Twitter or LinkedIn. We'd love to discuss if anything of interest comes up. Yeah.
Fantastic. Priyom, thank you so much for being on the show. It's so exciting to share this with the audience. And I'm definitely, I like to ask those questions about research because for selfish research to up level my skills. So you gave me some great notes here, but I hope you enjoyed yourself and thank you again for being on the show.
Sure. My pleasure. Thanks so much, Julian. Wonderful speaking with you today. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.